This is where it all began for one of the greatest and most hardcore video game developers ever. Gunstar Heroes is the very first attempt at independent development when a small, talented group split from Konami. This group, which formed the ever-popular and now famed Treasure, handily cemented its name as one of the best developers on the Sega Genesis, alongside the Genesis-era greats such as Sonic Team and Technosoft.
Though many of Treasure's future games seemingly overshadow it to this day, Radiant Silvergun gets all the press, or so it seems. Gunstar Heroes is still considered one of the very best run-and-guns ever created.
If it's addictive, flexible gameplay you're looking for, Gunstar Heroes has you completely covered. As far as run and guns go, the thing that really separates Gunstar Heroes from its competition is its ridiculously sharp controls. In addition to your movement on the ground and in mid-jump being just right, you can also change the nature of your jump into an attack in a pinch if you've misjudged your original plans. Wall jumps, slides, grapples, 8-way firing in both fixed and free options. It makes for incredibly approachable, fluid, and sublimely playable gameplay, regardless of experience.
Your weaponry is just as flexible with 2 weapon slots. With 4 different weapon types that can be mixed and matched in the 20 different attack types, anyone can jump in and play with a weapon style that's good for them. Some are more powerful than others, while others guarantee constant damage at a lower rate. But with so many ways to deal death, there's really something for everyone.
The 2-player mode is just as engaging, and the enemies and bosses all scale up in frequency and vitality to compensate the second player, making the game equally challenging and providing a fairly tactical experience. In addition, you can even use the other player as a projectile weapon, which is just plain wicked.
The gameplay has its problems though. Sometimes you won't want to throw your teammate or be thrown, and some of the bosses are super cheap. But on the whole, these are fairly minor annoyances that can be worked around with a bit of practice and patience.
Scoring in Gunstar Heroes is pretty straightforward and offers nothing in the line of extends or continues, since you only have a single life and unlimited chances to retry. You will lose your score if you die, however. In later versions, such as XBLA and PSN, online leaderboards were added, giving players more of a reason to go for a high score, since an in-game leaderboard never really existed otherwise. So Gunstar Heroes can walk the walk, but can it talk the talk? In a word, hell yes it can.
The visuals are clean and well defined, with large bosses and obstacles made out of several moving sprites to keep the action moving steadily, where larger, more detailed ones could have crippled the action with slowdown. The visual style is totally off the wall, with tons of small, hilarious touches that become a staple of most of Treasure's games. Gunstar Heroes also set a new gold standard at the time that Treasure themselves continually bested and improved upon with their successive titles.
As good as the visuals and design are, the sound is where Gunstar Heroes truly shines. While the sound effects can be scratchy and seemingly overdriven with a bit too much gain, the music is amongst the best the Genesis offers, with clean music that doesn't sound too tinny and a catchy, addictive soundtrack that I sometimes find myself humming to this day.
The game even switches genres in the middle of the story to a traditional shmup with an interesting 2-player feature. One player controls the ship while the other controls a mobile turret, each with the weapons they would use while run and gunning. Pretty great stuff, and it breaks up the game extremely well.
You can even dash out of the way if things get hairy. And where the weapon mechanics are so sound, this level could actually make up an entire game if it was made this way. It's all just another way that Gunstar Heroes broke the mold for its time. So, how does Gunstar Heroes stack up? We'll take a look in a second, but for now, here are more sights and sounds of the incredible, groundbreaking Gunstar Heroes. With challenging scaling gameplay that adjusts for multiplayer, and with varying difficulty settings, Gunstar Heroes keeps you on your toes without completely destroying your will to continue.
It's also easy to pick up and play. Even after 18 years, I was able to play Gunstar Heroes just as well as when it first came out.
Gunstar Heroes also switches types from run and gun to shmup and back again, with a ton of boss fights thrown in for good measure, making for a very fresh gameplay experience throughout.
Even though I'm a terrible shmup player, I was still able to tackle the shooter portion while controlling the ship with no trouble.
The graphics are solid and the game runs fairly smoothly. In addition, there are all kinds of humorous elements peppered everywhere, just to remind the player that Gunstar Heroes never takes itself seriously at any time whatsoever, which is awesome.
The little details they put into the characters are memorable and will make players laugh out loud.
And as great as the graphics are, the soundtrack is one of the very best on the Genesis, bar none.
Of course, non-soundtrack is memorable right from the start.
Now, on the other hand, the sound effects can be scratchy and a bit too overdriven, making them sound kinda bad compared to the great music synth.
I found the main characters sound a bit girly.
Now, one thing we can both agree on, though, is that some of the bosses can be a bit on the cheap side, especially Orange and Blackfly in the final level. On the whole, though, Gunstar Heroes is a game that absolutely needs to be in every gamer's collection, and there's just no excuse not to have it. It's a bit pricey on the Genesis, from $16 to $30 at auction in varying states of completeness, but you can get it on PSN, XBLA, and Wii Virtual Console for less than $10.